beginning, you don't even know how the journey is going to be. So because the data you have and the biology that you have, I've seen some models that people have made, like some some um so some what's it called, existing models that people have made, um like the IDM models, which is open malaria, that was made with agent-based models. You find out that as the you will discover that as the dynamics of malaria change, those models now, they have made them for like 10, 20 years. They cannot fit into what malaria is saying now, because they are already like, they are custom made models. They are made them they just made them so that people can use them. But if it's not being updated, it's not going to be useful, because what, like, take for instance, in the intervention space of malaria now, we are talking about vaccination. So when they made those models, it was when there was no vaccination. So there is need for you to update such model. If they don't do that, it cannot fit into what is going on now. And then when they added, by the time they added perennial chemo prevention, those models were made. It was maybe before they added perennial chemo prevention. So all of those things, because the dynamics of malaria transmission and intervention is changing every day. And then we are getting to know more things as we do research. Before now, if you are developing a model on malaria, you will have a compartment that takes care of the recovered. That was when people did not know. But as we know the biology more, we have to remove the recovered compartment, because we found out that when people take the treatment, they don't actually stay in the recovery class. So they still go back to susceptible, because so, and the largest number of people that is giving elimination difficulties, they are found in the asymptomatic people who are not showing clinical symptoms. And then when you are not showing clinical symptoms, what do you go and do in the hospital? What do you want to complain to the doctor? He say you don't have fever, you don't have any this thing, and then the doctor say go home now. What are you doing here? But those were the people that are actually contributing to malaria being difficult to eliminate, because 80% of the population are asymptomatic, right? So we saw that now the usefulness of models relies on the quality of input assumption. So if your input assumptions are not relevant biologically, then your model will not be useful to inform policy. I was reading a paper one day, and the person was using the dynamics of another disease, another vector-borne disease. He was using that dynamics to represent malaria. And when you now say malaria, what kind of malaria? Because like I was saying the other day, that now most of the papers are found, especially theoretical papers in Nigeria, they always put relapse. And the question I keep asking, what kind of malaria are they modeling? Is it a PF malaria, or PV malaria, or POV malaria, which is Plasmodium ovale, or Plasmodium vivax, Plasmodium malariae, or Plasmodium falciparum? And the other one, which is the monkey one, what's the name? Plasmodium, that's the fifth one. I've forgotten now. Eh? No, I've mentioned ovale. Eh? Is it Nolesi? Okay, Nolesi. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It started with K. When you say Nolesi, I was thinking hen. So, all right, thank you. So yes, that's the monkey one. So you find out that now when you are even modeling malaria, the question is, what kind of malaria are you modeling? Because like in Nigeria, we don't have, more virus is not prevalent. Like my PF is more prevalent. So if you are seeing the cases of malaria that we are recording, they are mostly PF, right? So, and then you have to know, understand what input assumption are you putting in your model, and then a modeling dynamics, and how closely future condition relates to assumptions made. Now, the assumption you made, now, how close are they with some, maybe even in the next 10 years, do you still think that those assumptions will still be relevant going forward? So, which is not known in advance. You know, we don't know the future. I'm predicting 10 years ahead. I don't know what's going to happen. And that's why when you are doing modeling, I said the other day that your estimation must be of interval base, not point estimate. If you are doing point estimate, you are going to shoot yourself on the leg. Because by the time the situation occurs, when you have said 1,000 cases are going to be averted, and in my own case, I have said between 1,000 and 3,000 are going to be averted. So when the situation happened, it happened at 1,500. So my own still falling. Your own was outside, was not part. So that's where, when you are talking about future, you are not, because there are a lot of uncertainty in life. So you don't get to like too fixed. You must be probabilistic when you are doing your estimation, right? So then models do not report facts, but provide a mechanism to support decision making through exploring the impact decisions made now could have in the future. Now, and that was the same thing I was trying to say, that look, you are here in 2026 and you are picturing 2035. How do you want to do it? Now, for us to do it, you need the existing information to predict into the future. And for you to do that, you have to consider probability. Now, despite these limitations, however, models can still be qualitatively informative and help guide decisions when interpreted with care. You must interpret models with care. Now, policymakers should therefore ensure decisions are well informed by carefully considering the model's intent. What's the reason behind the model? What's the purpose of the model? We must consider that. Now, the methodology. What's the methodology? What are the methodology? What did your methodology produce in terms of results? The assumptions, the data sources, and sources of uncertainty. Now, if a question cannot be answered through modeling, other research methods may need to be used to answer the question. Now, we look at some overview and key questions for engagement throughout the process. Problem formulation questions. So the need now is that under that, what do we look for? What is the decision or policy question of interest? Now, some of you are already in different groups. What are you trying to trash? What are you trying to do in your group? Now, the first place you should start is here, problem formulation question. What is the decision or policy question of interest? You should be able to state it clear. And somebody should be able to say, okay, this is what we are doing. Now, the question should not contain method. It should not be that I'm using machine learning to, no. That is not a question. That is not a question. You are already mixing method with question. So the question should be biological. Now, as it's addressed, so can it be addressed through modeling? Then if you pose the question, you have to look at it. Can this question be addressed through modeling? Is modeling going to address this question, or do we need to go to lab? You need to ask yourself. And then what modeling question does the study try to address? What modeling question does the study try to address? You have to ask yourself. Now, does it match the policy question? The modeling question that you have developed, does it match policy question? Is this something you can, at the end of the day, give feedback to policy makers and say, well, if you look at this work we have done, these are the likely things we are observing in the next so years. You can put up a report, a position paper after the work, and then put it up to them. Then you also need to look at data contextualization question. Data contextualization. This is a very important part. Very, very, very important. Now, you need to think about what data are you going to use or were used. Let's talk about. So, do you have any data? What kind of data do you have? Somebody asked me sometimes ago, said, Prof, can you send me data? I said, no problem. What kind of data do you need? You didn't know. So you don't know the kind of data you need, and then you need data. So what do you use the data to do? So okay, I said, well, you now ask, what kind of data do I have? Okay, I said I have different kind of data on malaria. So I have routine data from NMDR, DHIS2. Okay, and I send the data to him. When I sent data to him, he was saying, I didn't see susceptible population in the classification. Susceptible. Okay. So I now, when he said that, I knew that this person is not familiar with data. You know, mathematicians, we are too far away from people. Yes, now, with your DYDX. And for me, I see that as a very dangerous thing. Now, mathematics should be useful for society problem. If it's not confronting society problem, that mass is a waste. It's true. That's my own belief. So, and now, I don't think the person was able to use the data anyway, because he did not know what to use the data for. He was just looking at all the stratification and everything. And let me tell you, these things, if you are not trained, you can't do it. It's not about making mouths. If you don't sit down and get trained on how to do it, you cannot do it. Some of you that are talking yesterday, if I sit you down and give you some project to do, you will discover that from the next 1-2 years, you are still on it. That's why, the space of modeling is not something that is like an ocean. Even we that we are working there, we are still swimming. Do you understand? It's a big ocean. So it's not something that you just say, this, no, that this thing is, I know. Because when you are doing data work, you only know your beginning. You don't know where you are going to end. When it comes to quantitative, you know how you begin. But by the time you start working, like I did a project with some people in Abuja. So they asked me to prepare a curriculum for medical doctors and some people who were doing a public health consultant. They want to learn modeling. They thought modeling is like anatomy. I said, okay, now, no voila. They said they want people that will be trained as PhD level for 10 months. And then they have to come, like, out of that 10 months, they will come physically for maybe twice, 2 weeks. 2 weeks, 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there. And they'll finish. PhD level. I say, I don't think this man knows what he's talking about. Because my own definition of PhD is not certificate. That's why you have different kinds of PhD in Nigeria. They are useless because they are not competitive. PhD is to prepare you for a thinking life, a deep thinking life. That's what PhD means. It's the beginning of thinking. Is it just copy and paste? You went to this, you copy this one. No. So I said, Oga, I love your lofty ambition, but your model is not going to work. This model you are preparing. So he now wanted, this guy, I think he's more of a businessman than a scientist. So he wanted people to publish paper, like publish. He had about 30 of them, doctors who are in the university, those one in the public airspace. I think how many Olasupo, the first set, it was not 30. It was 30, right? 30 of them. So he wanted one person to produce one paper. At they have basic level, intermediate, advanced. So at basic level, you produce one paper. One paper, making 30. Abi? Intermediate, one paper. How many? 60. Advanced, one paper. 90 paper in 10 months. So I was laughing. So by the time we started, I told him that it's not going to work. I prepared the curriculum, I gave it to him. I started teaching them. And then eventually, let me tell you, the project is finished now. They don't have one good paper. One. And they have trained many sets. They trained set 1, set 2, set 3, set 4. They collected big money from Gate Foundation. They don't have one single good paper. I said, what did I tell you? He said, you were too ambitious. Now, you think that like doing mathematical modeling is just something you just write stories. No, it's not about stories. My PhD students that are sitting down there every day, it was at the end of their third year, they were able to start writing one paper. Don't understand? One paper. They started writing their paper now. Ask them now. They saw where? It's not easy. One paper. So what we are, I'm not saying, you see, I'm letting you know that you need, after this, you need mentorship. That's what is going to keep you on the track. It's not something you just pluck on the tree like that. You need mentorship to get to sit down and put these things inside. Because when you is another and one aspect is for you to be able to get the question, to be able to get the question that you want to track, you want to respond to. Another aspect is the data. How do you work on the data? Because working on the data can take you some months to even bring out something valuable from the data. Being able to data, I mean, to the level of at least you're able to handle data correctly with coding, programming. You have your data like this, you are doing a lot of things, producing patterns so that it can help guide you in your model formulation. Because if you don't understand the data, how do you want to develop a good model that can work with the data that you have? So you also need that understanding. So the question now is, what data were used? Are they representative of the population of interest? Now, the data you want to use, what geographical location are you considering? Because the data must be a representation of a geographical location. Are you getting me now? It could be just a local government in Kebbi State that the data is representing. And then it's going to picture everything about that local government in terms of that particular disease. So you must have something. I mean, you must understand the geography of that location. Because at the end of the day, when you are going to interpret your results, now, take for instance now, if I pick schistosomiasis as a disease, now there are about 4 risk populations that schistosomiasis that are at risk of schisto. You have women and girls, you have children, school-age children, you have community that does not have safe water and hygiene, and then you have farmers and fishermen. Those are the 4 major risk populations. Now, when you go to that kind of population, now let's take for instance, I'm taking a particular local government. Now, all the data I have, by the time I'm doing my interpretation, I must understand the local context. Maybe the place they are into farming, that will have also hated that chisto. If you don't understand, that's why modeling that they bring from abroad does not work here. Somebody is sitting in Virginia University and is modeling for you. He doesn't know what is going on in Birnin Kebbi. Have you been there before? He has not been there. He doesn't know the situation. He brings the model. The model is saying something else. Brini KB is saying something else. Somebody comes for COVID in Ekiti State. He has never been to Ekiti State for once, and is modeling for us. And that was why we raised the issue of let's raise local modelers. Who will be there? You are in where? Nasarawa State. And some people came from other places here. So if we raise a modeler from Nasarawa and is doing something there, he has their data. He understood what is going on in that terrain. He knows the local context. He knows the occupation of those people. And now the disease can affect them. So you cannot interpret models outside the local context of what is going on in a particular population. So that's why when you are thinking modeling, you must be equipped in every aspect, not just the mathematics. If it's just mathematics, it's not enough to do the kind of modeling we are talking about. If it's only math that you want to concentrate on, you may not be able to do, because you need to work with so many people like geographers, like data analysts, epidemiologists, entomologists sometimes, and they'll be sharing their mindset. From there, you are also learning parasitologists and all that. So now you also have to think of where did the data come from? The data you have, where did it come from? So because like if you don't know where your data come from, then there's a lot of questions. Because one question is that when there are issues with the data, where do you go to ask? Yeah, I'm seeing some outliers. I'm having missing data. What's the problem? There was a time I was having some data with me, and the data were actually from NMEP. So those data were having missing data, and I was battling with the data until God gave us a favor in their sight, and they started giving us access to their data. And I had to I threw the one I was using before. I threw it away because there was something that was more useful for me in their old data bank. So if I don't have a source that I get data from, and I cannot identify a particular recognized source, because it must be a recognized one. If I'm quoting if I'm using a data and it's not maybe just from I don't know, somebody was doing the work and he said I got it from newspaper, and now you get and you are quoting it in a research from newspaper. So those are not original points that you can put in your work and say you have done anything. So now, how were the data gaps addressed? You also have to think about that when you are looking at the data contextualization question. So in the course of your data, you are looking at data contextualization. You are looking at how were the data gaps addressed. Some gaps were seen in the data. How did you address them? Gaps could be in terms of maybe in the course of doing, maybe you have an incidence data, and you are seeing that there are some other data you will need. So you are seeing gap, maybe even in terms of the information inside the data that you need to, maybe you are seeing missing outlier. How do you fill those gaps? And you are feeling that there should be some other demographic information in the data, like age, like maybe death or something, occupation, that may be useful for what you want to do. So you may need to say, please, how do I get those data to include in this one I have? Maybe you need information about coverage of a particular intervention, maybe like ITN, and then you want to put in your data, and then you will need to ask. So was a quality assessment conducted? Now, quality assessment starts from you being able to, like, before you use your model, your data to develop to carry out complex analysis, you must be able to find out what distribution does it take. You must be able to find out what's the pattern of the distribution of this data. Is it positively skewed? Is it negatively skewed? Does he have some issues around the outliers, missing data? What is the median of this data? What is the mean? All those things should be answered, like summary statistics. So you should be able to carry out that quality assessment before you go on with the data. Okay, it's not going on. Now, model development, fitting, and validation question. Under this is another level again. Now, what type of model will be most appropriate to answer the policy question of interest? Now, you have had a question at the beginning. You know, we said there's a question, right? And then you begin to ask yourself, what kind of model do I need to answer this policy question of interest? What kind? Is it statistical model? Is the question talking about correlation, relationship? Is it talking about association between one variable and the other? Is it talking about transmission? Is it talking about transmission or checking the pattern of incidence or pattern of prevalence? So you need to ask, what kind of model do I need? Now, how will the model be assessed to determine whether it fits to the data and whether it makes epidemiological sense? How will I assess the model? Whether it fits to the data and whether it makes epidemiological sense. Now, one way to do that, you have to look at it. Okay. Now, do I have data? If it is a what's it called? A time series data. So do I have okay, it means that my model is going to be a continuous time model, and then which I am going to use to fit the model, the data, because I'm supposed to fit model to data, not data to model, right? So not data to model, but model to data. So I'm supposed to fit model of a particular location to data or conform your model to data. So for you to do that, you need to learn how to do what is called some deterministic optimization, which is some of them are, I'm going to talk about them as we go on, and then some people are going to give some examples. So least square method, that's least square method. There is LSM, and then we have maximum likelihood. We have the Bayesian approach, where you are going to use to fit your model to data, and because of that, you are estimating some parameters. Given the data, you are estimating some parameters, both demographic parameter and epidemiological parameters. So, and then in the course of doing that, what outcome measure should the model estimate to best answer the policy question of interest? What outcome measure should the model estimate to best answer the policy question? So, you know, you have a question. If you have a question, there must be an answer at the end of the day. So how will the answer come out? The answer is going to come out when you use your methodology. The methodology process is like the methodology is what will process the question you're answering, and then we give you result. That result will represent your answer. So if your answer is not in tandem with the question you have, then you need to go back and check. So what we are saying here is that now, I'm saying that what are the effects of ITN on malaria in Oye Ekiti. Let's take for instance. So it means that what I may be thinking about is that, okay, how will ITN reduce malaria cases, right? Malaria cases. How many cases will be averted? That should be one of the things I should be thinking about, right? By using ITN. Maybe I have a data from 2015 to 2026. So I want to see how will ITN. Now, so for me to do that, I need to think, okay, if the coverage is 10%, how many cases of, coverage of ITN? So what I need to do now is to build a scenario. So how many cases of ITN are going to be averted? If I say 20% coverage of ITN, or if I say 0%, 0% means business as usual. I didn't do any counterfactual. I didn't do anything. We didn't do anything. What will happen if we don't use ITN? What happens? You can have a worst case scenario. Now, we can say, okay, 50% coverage of ITN. What happens? How many cases of malaria will be averted in Oye? These are things we can subject modeling to do that you may not be able to do with experiment. Now, if you do that, and then, or has been averted, or will have been averted, let me put it like that, because there are two directions to, because I have a data from that retrospective data, right? 2015 to where? 2026, retrospectively. So I can do a retrospective study to check what we should have gained in terms of, or what we have gained so far in terms of if we have had this number of percentage, and then if I'm able to do that, that will give information on maybe any past things they have done in that local government. And then going forward too, prospectively now, I now say that, okay, for me to do that, going forward from 2026 to 2036, that's 10 years. If we use 10%, what will happen? You know, we are not in 2036, but from our model, we can do that prospectively by saying, okay, if we introduce 10%, 30%, 40%, 50% coverage of ITN, how many cases we have averted? You can also see that. So in doing that, we are doing some estimation there. Estimate to best answer the policy question of interest. Now, what model structure will best capture the main sources of uncertainty? Now, we need to think about that. Is it going to be a stochastic or a normal deterministic model, or a deterministic model that will be flavored with some probability, so that you put some level of uncertainty in your parameters to be able to capture the dynamic of that system? Now, how will the model incorporate key mechanisms of disease epidemiology like dynamics, progression, transmission patterns, population behavior, immunity, vaccine introduction? These are things you need to ask yourself. Right? Then, how will the model assumption be made to align with available data and evidence? That's when we come to fitting. You have the data, you have some evidence, you have information. How will you align your model with available data? Like I was drawing something the other day. How will your model align with the data that you have? On what basis will this assumption be made? You know that a realistic assumption should be made on the biology of the disease, on the epidemiology of the disease. And if you want to learn well, to know what is going on about a disease currently, you don't go to just publication alone. Apart from publication, you check WHO, you check CDC. You can get information on any disease, either infectious or non-infectious, current information about that disease. As of yesterday, Ebola Budiguya, although I questioned it when I saw it, they said it has, Uganda has been able to overcome it. But I asked, I now sent a message there, because when I saw it, I saw that they said that Uganda has been able to get rid of Ebola Budiguya in their border. But my question was that the logo I saw there was Uganda. I didn't see WHO. So I felt, who is giving this certification? So I asked them that, so it's from Uganda, something virus and something. I said, so who is giving this certification before I can announce it to the world? So because it's WHO that will give that kind of certification that Ebola Budiguya has been get rid of in that place. So, but Congo is still struggling with it. Now, how realistic will they be? How realistic will the assumptions? So your assumption can only be realistic if it's following the local context of that place, and then the biology is being represented. How will these key assumptions and mechanisms in model structure impact model results? Yes. Let me tell you, every model is limited by its assumption. Every model. So if you're a good modeler, as you are talking about your results, all the sweet things about the model, you should also talk about the limitations of your model. That's when you're a good modeler. Now, a good modeler must not hide the limitation, the challenges you face in terms of what your model will not be able to cover. You should be able to tell us. So somebody can drive on with that when he sees your work. Okay, let me try to do something from here. And then the mechanism in model structure impact. So, like your assumption, let me tell you, a little assumption on the model can change the whole paradigm. A little assumption, a little change in the mechanism of the model, like take for instance, you have your transmission, your force of infection. What's force of infection? Who's going to tell me? Force of infection. What is force of infection? Huh? Force of infection. Yes? Doctor, you want to tell us? Force of infection. Yes? Who is going to tell me? You have been doing modeling, some of you already have 50 papers. They are not showing your head now. Force of infection. Beta I. What is it? What does it mean? The rate at which you acquire infection, force of infection. The rate at which you acquire the infection is force of infection. Now, that beta high, right? If I just put beta I over n, you are using beta high. If I say beta I over n, it will change the whole mechanism. If I say beta I over 1 plus alpha s, I am putting up saturation. So the incidence becomes saturated, or alpha high, or I say 1 plus alpha I squared. Do you understand me now? Everything will change. The whole thing you have been doing before, once you put it and simulate it, you see that the whole pattern will change. So that's why we said the mechanism, how will these key assumptions and mechanisms that we saw, all these transmission pattern, progression, how will they change the structure? They can change the structure. How will the number of vaccine doses received be tracked in the model structure? Vaccine doses. Like if somebody receives 0 dose, like for measles, right? If you receive 0 dose, that's counterfactual. You do nothing. You don't do anything. You see the picture. If you receive 2 doses or 1 dose, you see the picture. Receive 2 doses, see the picture. Right? You do supplementary immunization activities, see the picture. SIA. Right? So all of those things will be pictured as you do what we call a scenario analysis. Yes. So what can be learned about the policy question from interpreting model outcomes and scenarios? What can be learned? What can we learn from it? These are things you have to ask yourself. Now, modeling, developing, fitting, analysis involves questioning. At every stage, you keep asking yourself questions. And that's why you should be able to write all these things down. As you are doing your work, you ask yourself questions. Some of these questions are written down. What can I learn? What can I learn about the policy question? The policy question I have posed. What can I learn from interpreting model outcomes and scenarios? These are questions you pose for yourself. And then, what are the most important model findings? What did you find out? What are the most significant ones that you find out that people may be interested in? Like you are saying that, wow, when we use vaccination, like in Nigeria now, vaccination for measles is not up to 80%. If it's up to 80%, measles will have been eliminated. Do you understand? I asked some students, about 2 students. One is in Nasarawa now. One is here. So yesterday, they were doing, I asked her, she has been doing her work on measles. So what do you get as your RC and your R naught? Where is she? Robinson. She's not here. So her R naught, she said she got 15 in her model. Yes, which is very which is the truth, because the round not for measles is 12 to 20. I think between 12 and 20, 18, sorry, 12 and 18. So you still fall within the space. Now, RC, that's the effective reproduction number, is still far above 1. Are you getting me now? Which is not supposed to be. So it means that some people are not taking the vaccine. One, there are two things there. There are susceptible. We need to check the susceptible profile. People that have been born that have not taken the vaccine, they are susceptible. They have not been vaccinated. So they are causing a lot of problems. The immunity gap as well, because that vaccination, that you have vaccination coverage does not confer protection. Vaccination coverage does not say that you are fully protected. So we need to check that as well. That you receive vaccination does not mean that you are protected, right? So we have to also look at that. So all of those things are playing around. Then this issue of ethics in vaccine, people are having some mites, like, oh, vaccine, when we take it, they want to take our blood, some different kind of into our body, our children, they said they will die, all of those things. People are not taking the vaccine. So those are social, cultural behavior that are affecting. So vaccine hesitancy. So in the long run, you see that some of these disease. So somebody was saying that in a particular state, I think WHO producer say for Nigeria is around 40-something% in terms of what's it called, the vaccine coverage they have put out. So it's far away from where we should be, and that's why, measles is still endemic in Nigeria. So now the issue also is that how might they provide insight for the decision, like scenario formulation now? How might they provide insight for the decision? You have to ask. You have built up scenarios. One dose. What happened? So how will he give information? So that the policy maker is saying that, okay, it means that a lot of people are not taking this thing. What do we do? Are you getting me now? So in doing that, I will talk about, maybe not today, I'll also talk about the economics of that in terms of health economics, cost effectiveness. Because when you say that people should use certain number of those, the government want to know how much is it going to cost us? So, and they are looking for the best and the cheapest, right? What will give them value and still save life. So now, for what period of time were impact measured? We also want to know what's your time space, the time space that you are looking at. Are you looking at 10 years, 15 years, 5 years? So that's why in modeling, you don't just say, we are looking at your work. We don't know your time bound. You cannot see the time bound you are working with. That's another aspect. Okay, I still have time. Now, what assumptions were tested across a range of scenarios? What assumptions were tested? The scenario are based on assumption. If I say 10% coverage, 20% coverage, 30% coverage, they are assumptions, but they are realistic assumptions that can be worked with. Now, is the full range of uncertainty around key parameter explored sufficiently? The full range around key parameters of uncertainty. Now, when you look at parameter values, you must always know that parameters are always influenced by uncertainties. And that's why every parameter value you have, we should put them between a lower and upper bound. You should have upper bound, lower bound. You should not have a fixed parameter value. The only thing you can say that you have a range and then you have a baseline. A baseline is the one you use for your own work that fits your own work. It may not fit another person's work. So parameters must be put up in a range. Now, do key model results change qualitatively within the observed range of uncertainty of key parameter do key model result change qualitatively within the observed range. Now, if you have, take for instance, you have beta, that's transmission rate, between, let's say, between 10 and 20. I'm just giving an example, 10 and 20. Now, if I begin to pick values between 10 and 20, and I'm changing them, maybe I have beta 1, when beta 1 is 10, when it is 10, 11, when it is maybe 10.5, 11, 11.5, 12, 12.5. What pattern are you seeing? Are you seeing any change? You know, as you change the parameters, are you seeing any change in the dynamics of that model? Those are things you have to look at, and those are sensitive aspects of what you are doing. Ensuring transparent collaboration. Modeling projects require contribution from multidisciplinary teams, including modelers, epidemiologists, disease or intervention subject matter experts. It involves statisticians, policymakers, social scientists, program managers, and local health partners. So you see that a lot of people come together to make your results to be robust and useful, right? But you know, mathematician, you sit down in your office, you write all the equation. After writing the equation, you do all the analysis. And what's it called? Boundedness, positivity, and all those things you do. And then you plot all the graphs and you send all the paper. Next week, the paper is published. You went to LinkedIn, publish paper, Elsevier, Q1. You are happy. That paper is good though for promotion in your school, but not useful for anybody. Yes, because what you did means just theoretical, and you are the only one that is doing your things. You are running your things. Are you getting me now? So those kind of work cannot go beyond the four walls of your university. But if you are doing something, you see now, we are bringing in people, and then this one now, it involves data. That's when you are talking. But that one you are doing is just to maybe to get your master's. And after your master's, or if you're already a lecturer, to get promotion, you are in L1, you want to move for essay. You know, like someone was telling me yesterday, we were trying to send a paper that we did with malaria, NMEP. Thank you. So, and then the other person now said, we have sent it to one journal. So the journal said that the kind of thing we have done, that's not the kind of thing they publish. That we should. So they suggested some other journal for us. So the other person said, why are we troubling ourselves with all this high impact journal? And we should just throw it to, you know, we have other journal, like they will just take it. I said, well, that's your own choice. So that as far as me I'm concerned, he want to be an hen, a chicken. Me, I want to be an eagle. You know, an eagle does not eat anything. Eh? But hen, they eat poo-poo, they eat anything they see. Ekolo, what's it called? You know, they just eat anything. Chicken, they eat anything. But eagle, they eat fresh meat. So I told the person, I said, as far as I'm concerned, if you are going to work with me, you will eat what I eat. So it means that you are also becoming an eagle. So we are going to be looking for fresh meat. So all those people, you see what they are eating? They are eating, what's it called? Stale meat, stale food. So you cannot compare yourself with them. I encourage the students that you should not. So eventually we send the paper to even higher than the journal that requested us to change for them. So what we and for me, I'm not interested in 1 million paper. I'm interested in quality. 1 million paper in a year. If I have one quality paper, it will beat all your 1 million paper. Now, a guy told me, a Chinese guy told me sometimes ago He said in China, because there are many PhDs. PhD is like a primary school certificate in China. You know, primary school, at least everybody will go to primary school, right? Almost everybody, especially nowadays like this. Huh? If if you don't go anywhere, you start go to primary school, even if you don't continue to secondary school. Abi, so PhD is like a primary school certificate in China. So there are some PhDs that work in secondary school. Do you know why? Their PhD is not competitive. Yes. So he told me that if you see a Chinese guy that is doing his PhD in China, he's likely to finish his career in secondary school. Yes. He said, but where did they go? They look for top laboratory in the US. Yes. You see a lot of Chinese in US. That's why you think they are foolish. That's why they go there. So where they will join teams that are doing solid work. You join a team like this. You say once you have one paper in Nature, just one, Nature. Go and check the impact factor. Just one Nature paper, Nature or Science. Once you get back to China, they will give you professor. You become at least an assistant professor. That was what he told me. So he said that's why he is staying back to make sure that he publish in a very strong journal before he will go back to China. That if you have journal, even if there are 1 million, all these Elsevier, Springer, even if they say you are this thing, they will just push you aside. You can't get. If you have one paper in Nature, they will give you a job. Because they will believe that. Look at it now. They are asking engineering students in China now, not just to publish a paper or to write thesis, to bring out a product. I don't know whether you know about that. If you're an engineering student, you are doing PhD, you come with a product, not publication. So I know maybe one day Nigeria will come to that. I'm going to stop here. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Prof, for that beautiful session. So we want to take questions as fast as possible before we go for tea break. So if you have questions for Prof, can I see your hands up so I can count? Questions? Questions. Okay, I have one. I have two. Going. Okay, let's take it two. Number one.
Thank you, Prof, for your presentation. Yeah, my question is on model formulations and fitting. Is it possible for us to do them concurrently in order to capture the on hidden pattern in the model, in the data that the model cannot capture? Like, can we formulate a model and at the same time also perform model fitting before the analysis in order to get maybe the hidden pattern in the data that your model cannot capture?
Now, like I said the other time, that you even first need to understand your data very well before you go into model fitting. Some people have problem because they don't understand their data. They have problem for many months. Many months, because they don't understand their data. That was why I talked about data conceptualization. You must understand everything about data conceptualization, because by the time you start working on a data with a model, on a model that you don't understand the data very well that you are using, you will stay longer. Do you understand me now? So you have to first clear the aspect of your model development after you have understood your data. Do you understand? So your data should inform the kind of model you want to build. normally your data should form the kind of model you want to build. Because if you don't have that, that's why I encourage. Now, when we first started, I told my students that we should time series. All of them they are here, that we should do time series for us to first understand, since we are using a time series analysis, since we are using a continuous time model, we are using, we are going to be using a continuous time model. And then the time series is a kind of data you can use to fit a continuous time model. So I said, look, we need to use time series. We need to do out of time series. So before we can go into model development and all of that. But they did not listen. Samuel, are you hearing what I'm saying? Did you hear what I said? When I told you guys that we should, Aaron, when I told you that we should do time series initially, did you listen? So now what now happened was that they were there, they were just moving around, like, I don't know, there's this experience we call Kadesh Barnea experience. When the children of Israel, they were moving on a point for 40 years, moving like this, hovering on a point. Yes, I'm not joking, no. So until I say, okay, no problem, maybe by the time I publish with it, you will follow me. So I went to publish on MPOS. So in fact, that time I wanted to gain access to NCDC. So I took one of their problems. I solved it. I sent the paper to them. That was when we start engagement. So when we did that, we published in BMC, infectious disease, Springer. I now put their names in the paper. They were not part of it, but I said, okay, to encourage you, I put their name. When they saw it, say, Oga, so this thing is working. That was when everybody now went to do time series. So when we did time series, that was when they began to see the patterns in their data and how they'll be able to model. So the modeling they have been doing before that does not follow the pattern of the data. That was when they were able to see it. And then today now, people are, so the first thing I now did there was that, okay, all your data in malaria, let's publish on time series, wavelets, Sarima, everything, we put them together. That's one of the paper came out yesterday, accepted. One of them, we have published 2 now out of 5, remaining 3 for wavelet only. So what we are saying is, if you want to do a good work on time, you look at your data critically, study your data, do the analysis of your data very well, and then you can now move to the model based on the understanding of your data. It will make your work to be faster. And then when you now do your model development, you can now do your fitting, and then everything will work. Okay? Next.
Question 2.
Thank you, sir, for the beautiful session, as usual. So I just want to seek clarification about the recent idea you talked about earlier, eliminating the recovered class in the model. It's like you were saying that the recovered individual in the recovered class are only immune to malaria symptoms, for instance. If yes, I'm thinking that means they are still having little form of infection, only that they are not showing symptoms. With that, I think going back to the susceptible class is not correct, in my own opinion. I think maybe they should rather go to maybe asymptomatic class. And I was even thinking, like, can I put it this way, that the recovered individual in the recovered class have partial anti-disease immunity that reduces clinical manifestation, but cannot provide a complete protection against the infection. Can I put it that way? Thank you, sir.
Okay, Now, when you are sick of malaria, what do you do? No, give him the mic. Psst. Give him the mic. When you are sick of malaria, what do you do?
I visit the clinic.
When you visit the clinic, what do they do to you?
To run a test.
Right?
Yes, sir.
What kind of test?
Malaria test.
What's it called? Okay, you don't know. Malaria what? Who says that? No, it's not malaria. I'm the name of the test.
Okay.
Eh?
RDT.
That's what you are
familiar with. Okay.
Okay, RDT. We know, I know. That's light microscopy. And just the other one, most people don't use light microscopy. Most of the hospital. Do you have it in your health center? Most of the hospitals state they don't use microscopy, but that's the gold standard. So they use RDT, right? So after the test, right? If they find you positive, right? Yes, sir. So it means that what is happening there is that the number of parastemia in your blood, very high. It has subjected your immunity, right? And that's why you are sick, right? Okay. So now, what happened there is that you'll be treated. So when you are treated, what are they treating? ACT. What they use ACT to treat?
To reduce.
To clear the parasites.
Parasite.
Right?
Yes.
In your blood.
Yes.
And then you are not sick again after some few days. If you use it finish, right? Understand? Let's assume you complete the dose. You are not sick again. Now, when you are not sick again, right? So now we cannot consider you to be like what we are saying recovered.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So because you have cleared the parasite, are you getting what I'm saying? From your blood, and you are not feeling any symptoms. So it makes you not to see any symptoms again. You are symptomless, right? So at that time, when you are not having any sickness or something like that, you go back to
susceptible.
Are you getting what I'm saying now? Now, in the course of time, you understand what I'm saying now? Don't forget that in that same population, we still have asymptomatic. Now, what has happened? There are two things that can happen there. If you are asymptomatic already, you're already asymptomatic. What will make you to have symptoms and be sick is not primarily because you are bitten by mosquito. No. Because what makes you to be asymptomatic is that you have many inoculations. Do you understand me now? Several inoculations of mosquito makes you to be asymptomatic. So what now makes you to be sick is that maybe stress. You have stressed yourself, and then your immunity has gone down. That's the science, that's the research. So your immunity has gone down. That's what makes you the parasites that are the gametocyte, that's gametocyte now. You have more, you see, for the asymptomatic have more gametocytes, right? So at that time, your body is being subjected, and that's when you are sick, right? So when you are sick, you have more merocytes in your blood. So at that point in time, there's a challenge. You need to get back. Are you getting what I'm saying now? So by the time you get back, you have become a susceptible human being that can also be beaten again by mosquitoes, right? By mosquitoes. Again, you can, so when you have, that means you are SH now. If you are SH, you can, if you are exposed to an infectious bite again, now the likelihood that will happen is that you get more inoculation again and again, and you become asymptomatic. Are you getting me now?
Yes,
So that's it.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, sir.
Right.
Do we have? Okay,
Okay.
maybe we should because you are not part of the question. Okay,
Okay, that's
okay, we give
last
you the grace.
question before we, excuse me.
Thank you so much, Prof. Your lectures have been very insightful. Okay, so when you asked the question the other time, and I answered malaria parasites, because in hospitals, they still do these tests that they take a drop of blood.
Smear, like a
Smear.
blood
Thank
smear.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the only thing that can detect the merozoites, trophozoites, gametocytes that you're talking about. The rapid diagnostics tests are basically serological.
Yeah, yeah.
And serological
Well,
tests can be
serological.
so serological tests, there's this issue of cross reaction. We are looking for antibodies that have been made against a particular antigen, which is the parasite. So serological tests are cross-reactive. So they are not really diagnostic, but they use it for rapid diagnosis. You understand? So the confirmative tests are when you do those smears, you understand, and then you look at the trophozoites, gametocytes, merozoites, you understand, in the red blood cells. Thank you.
All right. So from WHO, now the gold standard is actually light microscopy. And these are not serological. They are diagnostic tools that are majorly for quick, immediate to click check. And most of them is when you are using PCR that you talk about serological. But that one can go down to check some persons that light microscopy, RGT will not be able to detect, PCR will detect. That's polymerase chain reaction. Are you getting? That's what we use for serological. All these people having their labs here and there, that's what they use. But for quick one, you use a smear. You can use blood smear or light microscopy or RGT. Okay? Thank you.
All right, let's put our hands together and appreciate Prof for that beautiful session. Okay, that was a beautiful session indeed, really. All right, so we'll be going for our tea break now. So please let's ensure we have our tags on and probably the